All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to talk about two incredibly powerful SQL features that can totally transform your database. I mean, we're moving it from just a simple storage box into something, well, something like a smart, active partner. We're talking about triggers and views, and trust me, they might just change the way you think about data entirely.
So, let's kick things off with a question that really gets to the core of what we're talking about today. We usually think of a database as, well, a passive box, right? We put data in, we take data out. Simple. But what if it could be more than that? What if it could actually react on its own? What if it had reflexes?
And this really nails the difference. I love this comparison. On one side, you've got the classic filing cabinet model. You have to do all the work, right? Checking for changes, making sure everything's right. But on the other side, you've got an active model. It's more like a smart assistant that's actually enforcing rules and taking action all by itself. That's the world we're about to step into.
So the big question is, how do we give our database those reflexes we were just talking about? Well, the answer, and our first big concept, is something called a trigger. A trigger is basically a pre-programmed if this, then that rule that lives right inside your database. You'll often hear it called an event, condition, action rule, or ECA for short. An event happens, a condition gets checked, and if that condition is true, bam, an action fires off. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's completely automatic. The whole process works just like a line of dominoes. It's a perfect analogy. First, you've got the event, which pushes that first domino over. Someone inserts or updates a piece of data. Then you've got the condition, which is kind of like a checkpoint. Does this change meet a specific rule? And if it does, boom. The action is the final domino falling, executing a whole other command all on its own. Okay, let's make this real with a great example from the source material. Imagine you have this social group in your database. Let's call it the Cool Kids group. You can actually set up a trigger so that anytime a user's popularity score gets updated, the database just checks. It asks itself, okay, is their new score below 0.5? And are they currently in the Cool Kids group? If the answer to both is yes, bam, the trigger automatically kicks them out. No one has to lift a finger. The database is literally enforcing the rules of coolness all on its own. Okay, that's awesome. So triggers give our database those reflexes. But what about another huge problem we often face with data? Just overwhelming complexity. And what if you only want to show certain people a very small, specific slice of your data? Well, that brings us to our next big idea, views. And here is the exact problem the views are designed to solve. Just getting a simple list of who's in the Cool Kids group might require this really complicated query, joining multiple tables together. Not only is that a pain to write every single time, but it also exposes the entire complex skeleton of your database. Not ideal. And the solution is a view. Now, the easiest way to think of a view is as a saved shortcut. It looks and acts just like a real table. It's got rows, it's got columns, but it's not. It's a virtual table. The database isn't storing a separate copy of the data, it's just storing the complex query that creates it, and you can access that whole complicated result with one simple command. And the benefits here are just huge. First, views hide all that complexity, so your users can run really simple queries. Second, they're amazing for security, letting you show only the specific rows or columns someone needs to see. And third, they give you this thing called logical data independence. This is so cool. It means you can completely reorganize your real tables in the background, but as long as the view looks the same to the outside world, any application using it won't break or even know anything changed. Okay, so this is where things get really, really clever. We've got automated reflexes with triggers, and we have these simplified windows into our data with views. So what happens when we combine them?
But hold on. First, there's a bit of a puzzle to solve. If a view is just a virtual table, basically a saved query, how in the world can you modify it? I mean, trying to update a view is kind of like trying to edit the name on a desktop shortcut and expecting the actual program to be renamed. It just doesn't work like that, right?
And our source material gives us this perfect example of what it calls an impossible case. Let's say you have a view that only shows users with a popularity score above 0.8. Then you try to insert a brand new user with a score of 0.3 directly into that view. The database is just going to say no way. It can't do it. Because the moment that user is created, they immediately fail to meet the view's own rules. They literally can't exist in a place they don't belong.
The solution is this almost magical kind of trigger called an instead of trigger. It's so clever. You're basically telling the database, hey, I get it. I know you can't update this virtual view, so instead of even trying, I want you to run this other totally different command on the real tables underneath. It intercepts an impossible command and translates it into something that actually works. So we've seen triggers that react and views that simplify. Let's kind of pull back now and look at the big picture. Why are these concepts so incredibly important for building modern applications?
Here it is, all broken down. Triggers, with their event condition action rules, make your data active. They turn it into that system of dominoes we talked about, ready to react on its own. Views, on the other hand, are all about making data accessible. They're like custom windows, giving you a secure, simplified perspective. So, if you want to remember it, just think reaction versus perspective.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The source material is really clear on this point, saying, quote, real database applications use tons of views. These are not some obscure niche features you might use once in a blue moon. They're absolutely fundamental tools for building strong, secure, and maintainable systems. And that really is the key takeaway for all of this. When you combine the automation of triggers with the secure simplicity of views, you just elevate your database. It stops being this passive box and becomes an intelligent, sophisticated system that is actively working for you. So I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. We've talked about making data active and responsive, but as these systems get smarter and smarter, what's next? What if our databases could move beyond just reacting to things that have happened and start predicting what needs to happen and then acting on it before we even think to ask? Now that's a powerful idea, and it shows you just how far we can take these concepts. Thanks for joining me today.